Welcome to the Rock is George podcast. I'm your host, George Dionne, and this is episode 76. Thank you for tuning into the podcast, whether it's through our website, rockisgeorge.com, through our YouTube page, on one of the many podcasting platforms out there, or at the loudest.com on the planet, knac.com. My guest for this episode is bassist Jeff Berlin. He is a solo artist, as well as being a part of many studio projects and other bands throughout the years. He has a great new album out. It's called Jack Songs. It's a tribute to legendary Cream bassist Jack Bruce. Jack Bruce passed away in 2014, and he was a member of Cream from 1966 to 1968. He had 14 solo albums. He was a part of John Mayall's band. He did a project with Leslie West, Cozy Powell, Robin Trower. One of my favorite projects, BBM, Bruce Baker and more. Highly recommend checking out that album. Jeff got together a bunch of his friends in the music biz, including members of Rush and the David Lee Roth Band, and he got Sammy Hagar, and he's got Eric Johnson and many, many other special guests for this Jack Songs tribute to Cream bassist Jack Bruce. I had the chance to talk to Jeff about this project and everything else that he has going on. So here's Jeff Berlin. Today we're talking about your latest album, which is called Jack Songs, and it's a tribute to bassist of Cream, Jack Bruce, who passed away in 2014. I think what a lot of people didn't know is, or at least I didn't know, maybe I'm out of the loop, is that he had 14 solo albums and many, many other projects beyond Cream. Your latest tribute kind of focuses on those non-Cream years, right?
It focuses on it. Cream was, I would say, his greatest, certainly his most popular, anyway, achievement. That group had no predecessor, had no precedence. It was something unreal. I mean, we who came along at that time and heard them live or heard their records live, the live tracks, we were all transported, transformed, transmogrified. I'm indebted to him in regards to introducing me to bass playing and a philosophy of music that I, as a young kid, wasn't aware of. So he opened doors for me. So when I did this tribute record, the first tune only is a tribute to his Cream years. I combined quite a number of songs in one sort of melange of Cream, because it was impossible to do covers of these Cream songs. I didn't want to do covers. I felt everybody does covers of the artists that they love, and they do them so well that I didn't think that people would be interested in mine unless I did something rather different with it, which is what I tried to do.
Now, you say that Jack opened a lot of doors for you, and some people think that just by listening to the records is what you mean by that, but you and him were actually friends, correct?
Yes, I was friends with him. The doors were musical doors. The awareness that a bass could do things that wasn't traditional at that time. I mean, in our current time, there are so many virtuosos, so many visionaries of the bass. There's just incredible players. They play better than I do, play faster than I do. They have way more technique than I do. I had a hand surgery, so I think that sort of youthful explosion of notes in me is pretty well over. It sort of caused me to open another door, which is that of harmony and bass tone. I can still play and still solo, but I'm compromised and probably will be for the rest of my life in terms of physical bass playing. But the doors that Jack opened for me were sonic, and in that he showed me that an original approach is always a personal thing. You have to pursue it. In a quick summation of this, my hand surgery, coupled with the lessons of Jack back in 1967, allowed me to realize that I can still play quite powerful bass, and possibly in a different way than a lot of great bass players are playing today.
When was the first time that you met Jack Bruce?
I was in England, and John Heisman, the jazz drummer, he and Jack were good friends and did a lot together. And I knew John, and I asked him if Jack was in town, I'd love to meet him. So he called Jack, and Jack knew of me, I believe, through the Bruford records. and came down and said hello. And I wasn't tongue tied. I was sort of stunned by him. First of all, doing what he did, and that it was the man whose every single bass note I ate and climbed into ever since I was a preteen. The whole idea of what I do on bass, some people have a propensity for certain careers. I mean, Ali was probably destined to be a great athlete, or, the great thinkers, the great dancers, the people that are sort of called to something. I'm no genius, but I was called to play because when I heard Jack, I said, this is what is in my DNA. When I say I ate up every note, I mean I climbed into every note. I listened and re-listened and then re-listened and then played and practiced and imitated. And that ethic, I mean, it's tempered with my age, but the ethic stays the same. I'm still sort of a seeker of music that I don't know. And it keeps me growing and updated in music.
Jack Songs came out on August 2nd, but this album has actually been a long time in the making. You started this quite a while ago, actually.
Years ago, but I had a record companies went away, and I couldn't find a company that saw the merits in the project. And I respected that because companies want to make money. I don't blame any industry that wishes to earn a living. So maybe the thought of the musicality of the project was a little bit in a direction that people didn't want. So I did it myself. And the reason it took such a long time is because I financed it myself and hired people and called them. And this is the greatest stitch job I've ever done. And it ended up sounding organic, if you follow my thinking. Everybody played on this record flew in apart, just everybody, including me, I might add. So after the drums were recorded, I mean, the drums recorded to sort of demo keyboards and with a click, because I do believe in clicks in recording if it's required. Then Billy Sheehan then did his part, Geddy Lee did his part, and then Johnny Hyland did his, and Alex Lifeson did that, and Sammy Hagar sang overdubs, and then I played bass, and to Bruce Guttridge's drums and the keyboards that Bruce demoed to, or played to, I should say, were afterward. I said, they're good enough, I'll leave them. So I was the keyboard player on the record as well. But to answer your question, which of course I didn't just do and went all around the barn, is it took years. Just like this answer took years.
Production wise, you wanted this album to sound like a Gilles Martin production, the way that he did the Beatles' Love album. I think that you accomplished that, but what was it particularly about that style of production that you felt laid appropriate for this?
Giles Martin, is it Giles or Gilles? I'm not sure, but the same gentleman. I'm not sure either. He's the son of George Martin. He did the Beatles' Love, and where he extracted pieces of Beatles songs and assembled them into one sort of melange, of songs. And he did it to where the timing was perfect and they were all in key. And I was so utterly impressed with his production that I knew that I couldn't extract parts from Jack recordings, from digital or 2-inch tape. So I wrote it out. And that was where I would take, there's like 10 tunes on the record. First 8 of them are all Jack. I just added sections and arranged it so you might have 3 tunes in one. And it's seamless. It worked. And it worked because I followed the inspiration of Giles Martin.
And Jack Songs was produced by John McCracken, who is a business partner of yours?
Yes. John was the only guy that I had run into that had the same vision of the music that I did. So I got very lucky. And what he produced, because he's the producer, I did the music. I mean, I might have made a suggestion, but he's the producer. And what he produced was sonically one of the great record productions of this year. Truly a gifted producer.
And you're releasing this kind of old school, physical copies only, no digital streaming, nothing like that. Is there a particular reason for that avenue?
I'll update and go into digital streaming. I don't like Spotify because I feel they are not friendly to musicians. but I think we're going to go into Bandcamp and other sources in order to expand its availability. At first, I wanted to try to see if there were people that were lovers of music to where, or lovers of Jack, or of the guest list that I had, fans of those guys, and would trust my musical acumen, that felt that from all the things that I've done as a musician in the past, that I would produce a good record. And so I went to the way of selling my own digital downloads and CDs, and we sold a boatful. But I'm a mom and pop, or a pop and pop business, so I learned that keeping up with supply and demand was a challenge. I felt like maybe it's time to go into the 21st century and enter into other ways to expand the record, because I see I'm not qualified to do it all myself, but I did give it a shot.
Well, coming into the 21st century, there is some physical media that people are kind of eating up now, and it's vinyl, which is old technology becoming new again. Is that an option for you with Jack Songs?
Yes, that, and also licensing the CD if there's a company that hears it and has a vision. If they do it, I'll probably allow them to do the mediums of sales that they wish, and allow for LP, for vinyl. Right now, I don't prefer to do it because I don't know if there's enough people interested in it. I kind of trust the fact that great playing excites people. Look at Rush. I mean, they broke up, of course, after the passing of Neil Peart. But look at what they were. What was a band that true played rock tunes, had great singing, and but they were great players. In the fact that Rush was such a high level band of performers, it was that got me to feel that playing still counts with fans, because it does with me. If there's good playing out there, I want to hear it and just get blown away by it. So that's what the inspiration, in a sense, for doing this record was. And in a way, looking at Rush as an example of a successful group that used music and top playing as a a majority of their success.
And you have a lot of great players on this album. You mentioned earlier that you had Geddy and Alex from Rush on here. You have a number of great bass players paying tribute to Jack here: Billy Sheehan, Marcus Miller, Ron Carter. I could go down the whole list and take the whole interview of all the people that you got involved. I guess what I would say with the special guests is, I mean, obviously they share a love of Cream and Jack Bruce as well, correct?
Absolutely correct. And they're also friends of mine. And I have a lot of chits, that's CHITS, to pay back, a lot of chits, things that I owe these guys, because a lot of these guys just flew in apart. It was an 8-bar, what we call a bass relay. And I think it's an original concept. I don't know of it anywhere else. So I thought, oh, goodness, there's a lot of bass players in all kinds of styles that might hear something that they've never heard before. I was very grateful to Geddy and Marcus and, Michael League and all these guys. Mark King is a huge fan of Jack's as well. So we've been in touch just because we both worship Jack Bruce. I mean, this is the impetus for these guys showing up. So I play bass on the record, but I didn't play on the bass relay and gave it to my friends.
In addition to bass players, you have vocalist Sammy Hagar, Alex Byertwood from Santana, great guitar players Bumblefoot and Eric Johnson, and I mean, you guys must
Johnny Hyland. Let's not forget Johnny Hyland. He might be one of the greatest country guitarists that ever played. He's not a super name, but he is a super player and a super nice guy. So I had to throw that in, if you don't mind, George.
No problem. And he's legally blind as well, and he plays guitar like a madman.
Like a madman, you know him. Yeah, like a madman. I try to rise up to these guys, and I never can. It's like, so all I can do is just change the chord underneath, and hopefully the harmony excites people as much as, I don't know. I went off in a little tangent here. But Johnny's a badass. I mean, these guys are great players. I'm grateful. They lifted the record.
Now, are these special guests people that you've played with in the past, or are they just people that you've made friendships because you're all in the industry?
We're all in the industry. I played with Billy Sheehan in a three-bass band along with Stu Ham some years ago. Tony Levin and I are friends because I was very, very close with his brother Peter. I'm going down the list. Michael League is just someone I admire, and he offered to play his little quote and a solo. Who followed? Mark King, because we both love Jack. Ron Carter, because Ron is a legend and he was very generous in joining the lineup. Who's next? Marcus. I know Marcus since New York in the 70s. We've jammed. We never really gigged. Who follows that? Nathan East. We were friends for years. And finally, Geddy Lee, because I knew him also in the 70s. And I jammed with Rush. They were very kind. I was there hanging at a sound check, and a guy gave me a bass, and Geddy went to keyboards. So Rush was a quartet for a few minutes, which was fun for me. It was, these are friends, lovely people, good people, and lovers of Jack and lovers of music. See, I have a concept, an idea that if you are a famous artist that has accomplished everything you want, the only thing that might be left is playing on things that are different and might lift one's musicality in a new way. So I like guests playing with me, and I like playing with them. So that sort of open door makes music stimulating to me. But these guys may have felt the same way.
So with like guitar players that are considered like superly proficient, they call them virtuosos, or they call them shredders, or they call them stuff like that. It seems like with the bass, the greater bass players are tied to the label jazz fusion. So do you think that jazz is kind of the sound that defined playing the bass, or the uniqueness of what the bass is capable of?
Well, it certainly began in the virtuosic sense with Jaco Pastorius and Stanley Clarke. These are the two guys that inspired virtuosity, and then followed later. I was considered a virtuoso, which I tend to temper down a little bit. Then other great bass players came along. Goodness, where do I begin? Victor Wooten is a virtuoso. Damien Erskine is a virtuoso. Hadrian Farad is a virtuoso. There's a young lady, I know her last name is D-E-Y. I can't recall her first name, who plays maybe as virtuosically as can possibly be done on the bass. So it kind of came out of jazz. You're right. And I think Victor Wooten might be an example of someone that didn't come out of jazz, while his strengths are rhythm, the slap things he does, the two-handed tapping things he does. And he might play in jazz, but jazz isn't, I would say, his thing, whereby in a large case, it is mine if I did a jazz record. And most of us have, inspired by Jaco or Stanley Clarke.
You mentioned you had a solo band. Are they going to be playing any of these songs when they go out?
Absolutely. The band is roaring. I had gigs this year, but I canceled them all when I got COVID and found out that it was due to the variant. So I was concerned that I might get reinfected. And quite frankly, I was concerned that people sitting close might get infected or reinfected. And so I jumped the gun and just said, no gigs this year. I noticed from my friends, they're all out, they're all playing, and I guess everybody's okay. So, but I don't sort of regret the decision. I just didn't want to open a door that someone might get sick from this, because I got very badly affected by it, and I had 4 shots in me. And yeah, it's pretty damn rocking. There's no swing or jazz in this group. It's a rock band.
Are you going to play music from throughout your career, or are you going to play mainly your solo career stuff?
Well, I was thinking of adding a Bruford tune in there, Hell's Bells. I was thinking of 1 or 2 of my own solo tunes, maybe Joe Frazier, maybe something of that nature, and then couple it with the repertoire of Jack. So yeah, the repertoire is going to be a little bit mobile and bendable. So I'm going to include older songs and these tunes.
Are you still doing studio session work?
No. Well, they call me for sort of, virtuoso work. And at these days, I kind of am not interested in it. And The things that I get called for are fusion, which tends not to be an interest of mine anymore. I'd rather play just jazz or rock as it pertains to the broad interpretation of the styles. So, and also when I tried to sort of go and offer services, as I used to do a lot of commercial bass playing, a lot of it. I have a couple of sessions where people know my playing, but I was sworn to secrecy kind of vibe, you know. So I like sort of putting that out every once in a while as a tease. There's certain things I've done with a couple of established groups, but I'll never be able, and I'll honor that. I'll never share what it is. Anyways, these days, when I've gone to producers or talked to people and say, look, I'd love to play a simple, rhythmic, centered, good bass part and provide you good tone and do that thing, the answer 100% of the time is, oh, you're so good. You don't want to do that. And I had to come and accept it.
Outside of your secret recordings, have you ever auditioned or been asked to join an established act?
No. I played for Yes, but at this moment, no band asked me to play. And my assumption is that the bass that they wish might not require the kind of thing that I do. And that people always sort of, they're very polite. Oh my God, it's you, it's Jeff, blah, blah, blah. But I have a feeling that I tend to intimidate people by their interpretation of my musical skills. And that the idea is all I want to do is solo. When I have, frankly, I want to play bass in a rock band or in a good group. So I accept my reality and just teach and do my records and do sideman recordings when they come in. But one day the phone will ring. Someone of some rep will say, listen, would you be interested? And I would say it would be an honor. And then that'll happen. But can I give you a quick little synopsis here, a little short talking to me?
Sure.
I came up, I do it in every interview or because I feel it's necessary. You know, I owe a sort of a debt to the growth that I've personally experienced. I grew up in a very, very difficult family life and was in great difficulty, pain, a lot of anger throughout my life. And then when I was 60 or so, I went to therapy for 3 years, a deep therapy. I went into spiritual study and came to accept that whatever life showed me or gave me, that's fine with me. So I've never been one to complain about anything, and I've always been one about appreciating stuff. I mean, I used to be that an opposite way in the past. So the reason I say that is because I'm okay with what I have and will be open to what will come.
And that's certainly a good outlook. And it's great that you went to that mental state to kind of realize that things aren't so bad. Some people get kind of, they focus on the wrong thing. They focus on all the things that didn't come their way rather than all the things that came their way.
Well, yeah, and I can tell from experience that's what I did too. It takes an effort to surrender, and it takes an effort to open to whatever is. I learned a lot from Michael Singer, so as well, the spiritual guy. On the dint of my own sweat, on the dint of my own efforts, I made a career and an international one, just as a bass player. In that, I'm grateful and I'm very, how do I say this? I'm glad of the effort, the work ethic that I have in the pursuit of music, and it helped me. I mean, I can go anywhere now and have for years and presented my thing. I have an educational acumen that is quite unique in that I know I can improve anybody because I was trained in a certain way. So my interest is really with beginners, and I can help people to learn how to play better if this is their interest. So I have a lot of tools and a lot of good things that have happened, are happening, and will happen. So life is a beautiful thing, and I feel great.
Are you a finger player or a picker?
Finger player.
What do you think of pickers?
I admire them. It's kind of not necessary. It's not important what implement one uses to make their bass tone. Really, what's important is the ideas that we have. So if one uses a pick, or one uses their thumb, or one uses their fingers, it's the presentation of the idea, the musical idea. That's all that matters, really.
Do you have anything else going on in music besides this Jack Songs album and your soon-to-be live shows?
Yes, I'm preparing a touring bass class that'll be announced shortly. People that want to learn how to play better only have to do a certain few things to sort of crack that ice. And I've always encouraged people to read music, but have come to realize that a lot of people don't and might not choose to. So, in my going with the reality of today, I found ways to show people ideas and exercises and approaches that doesn't pertain to the written note, but still will open doors to players beyond the song. So I'm going to tour this. It's like a bass class on the road. I'll go to, they'll announce it. It's a charged thing. People will pay if they want a bass lesson, but the people that come are not expected to be any more or any better than they are. They have to be what they are. I don't. Some guys say, like in the past, they say, "Well, let me practice for your class." I said, "Don't practice. Come as you are. It's up to me to hear you and then say, why don't you try this?" So that's also the next project I have, and it should be beginning in the fall.
It sounds great. And your latest album, Jack Songs, sounds fantastic. You should be very proud of it. And I would recommend it to anybody that's a fan of the bass, a fan of Cream, or a fan of any rock and roll guy that appears on this album. I want to thank you for coming on the podcast today. I had a great time learning about Jeff Berlin.
Thank you. I hope I didn't over talk. I do that.
No, not at all. There's people that under talk, and it can be difficult sometimes. So
you're very kind.
And I appreciate you taking the time, and I wish you the best of luck with Jack Songs.
Thank you very kindly, George.
Once again, I want to thank Jeff Berlin for coming on the Rock is George podcast. His latest release, Jack Songs, is available exclusively through Jeff's website, jeffberlinmusicgroup.com. And as he mentioned in the interview, you may be able to find it soon on your favorite digital streaming platform. If and when that happens and you like what you hear, make sure you buy a physical copy. Support the artist. I also want to thank Billy James of Glass Onion PR for making this interview possible. You've been great. I've been George Dionne. I'll see you again soon.